Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something pretty unique. It's not just a list of demands, it's a full-blown blueprint for a nation. We're talking about the Balochistan Liberation Charter.
And right out of the gate, this charter doesn't mess around. It lays out its core mission in this one powerful line. This isn't buried in some footnote. It's the very foundation of the entire document. It's all about one thing: giving the destiny of the Baloch nation back to its people.
So let's break this down. The charter is really a two-part story. First, it argues why independence is even on the table by walking us through a long history of grievances. Then, and this is the really fascinating part, it shifts gears and gives us a detailed plan for what comes after. The actual nuts and bolts of building a brand new country.
All right, first up, that history of grievances. To really understand what's driving this whole charter, you got to look back at the history it's built on. It makes it very clear that this isn't some new movement. It's framed as a centuries-long struggle.
So, according to the charter, this whole fight is basically a reaction to some key moments in history. The argument is that these events took what was a single unified state and, well, shattered it, putting its people under foreign control.
And this timeline here, it really boils down their entire historical case into just 5 key moments. It starts way back in 1666 with what it calls a unified Baloch state. Then you see the invasion, the division. But the real kicker is right at the end. Look at this. They declare independence on August 11th, 1947, and then, boom, just 8 months later, on March 27th, 1948, annexation by Pakistan. That very specific, very short timeline is absolutely central to their entire argument for liberation.
So the charter basically says, okay, look at that history, and now look at today. It draws a direct line from those events to all of these modern problems. We're talking everything from exploited natural resources to devastating human rights issues, like forced disappearances. The document argues these aren't separate problems. They're the direct consequences of losing that sovereignty. And that, right there, is the main motivation for wanting it back.
All right, so that's the why. That's the historical case they lay out. Now, let's get into the what. What would this new nation actually look like? This is where we dive into the core principles they want to build it on, literally from the ground up.
One of the first and honestly most striking principles here is its absolute commitment to secularism. I mean, the charter is crystal clear on this point. It says religion and the state, totally separate. No religious extremism, no politics based on faith. It's a foundational pillar.
And right there with secularism is this other major pillar: equality, specifically gender equality. And this isn't just some lip service or a quick mention. No, the charter makes this a foundational, non-negotiable principle, guaranteeing equal rights for men and women in every single aspect of life: social, political, you name it.
So you've got secularism and equality as your base. On top of that, the charter lays out all of these fundamental rights. And as you can see, this list looks pretty familiar, right? It's pulling directly from international standards for human rights: freedom of speech, press, protest, the whole shebang. They're positioning these as absolutely essential for the kind of open society they want to create.
Okay, so with those principles in mind, secularism, equality, democratic rights, what kind of government does that actually translate into? How would it all work? Let's take a look at the actual structure they've planned out.
So what they're proposing here is, a pretty classic parliamentary system. Power starts with the people, who elect a national assembly. That assembly is the top dog. The executive branch, so the prime minister and the cabinet, they're accountable to that assembly. And here's a really crucial detail. The military is under the command of the civilian government, not the other way around.
But how do you get from point A to point B? Well, they've got a plan for that too, a 3-step transition plan. Step 1, a total, unconditional withdrawal of all occupying forces. Step 2, an interim government steps in to manage things. And Step 3, and this is key, UN-monitored elections within 2 years to hand power over to a government chosen by the people. It's a very clear, step-by-step roadmap. Now, what about law and justice? The charter goes into a lot of detail here. It's all about protecting individual rights, so you have a completely independent judiciary, the right to a fair trial for everyone. But the thing that really jumps off the page, the death penalty is completely off the table. It's not just discouraged, the document calls it strictly forbidden. That's a huge statement.
And then you have this number, 16. This isn't just some random detail. It's a huge piece of their social vision. It means education isn't just an option, it's compulsory and free for every single child, right up to the age of 16. That's a massive commitment.
All right, let's talk money. How would the economy work? The charter lays out a kind of hybrid system. On one side, it says all natural resources belong to the people, period. They'll be managed by the state, and foreign exploitation is a big no-no. But on the other side, it's not a purely state-run economy. It makes room for a private sector, a public sector, and even voluntary groups all working together.
So after laying out this incredibly detailed internal blueprint, they've covered government, justice, the economy, the charter does a hard pivot. It stops talking inward and starts talking outward, making a direct appeal to the rest of the world.
And this really is the ultimate ambition, the end game for the whole charter. The goal is to essentially turn back the clock on those 19th century divisions and reunite all the historically Baloch territories into one single sovereign nation. And to achieve that endgame, the charter doesn't just, ask for a pat on the back. It ends with a list of very specific, very bold demands for the international community. It's asking for real, active intervention. We're talking about securing borders, investigating more crimes, ensuring media access, and even demanding compensation for looting resources. It's a serious ask.
And at the end of the day, that's what makes this document so fascinating. It isn't just a vague declaration of independence. It's a meticulous, step-by-step blueprint for how to build a country from the ground up. And in doing so, it leaves the world with a really powerful and provocative question. What's the real path from a political vision on paper to an actual political reality on the ground?